All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Arts Connect Tuesday. I'm Douglas Jackson with the city of Roanoke, and tonight we've got Mackenzie Brocker here with us, and we're going to do a special conversation on, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop the share for a second. We're going to do a special conversation because I think when I have the slides up that you can't see who's talking, I think it's just the audio. I think we'll see. At any rate, I want to make sure you can see Mackenzie, and Mackenzie is with our stormwater utility and has been with the city for 9 years now. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. What's something you've learned in 9 years?
Oh my gosh, a lot. I mean, some of the stuff I'll share tonight, I've learned a lot about. I mean, when I started working here, I didn't know anything about stormwater really, so everything about that and, I had lived here for a long time, went to high schools here and stuff, and I hadn't been most of the places in all the streams. So I've been, I've walked all the streams in Roanoke, so just even learning about our local geography and stuff, it's been a lot of fun. I've been under downtown, learning about the streams, so it's definitely been a fun experience.
Excellent, excellent.
Where did you go to high school?
Salem High School.
Well, let's run through and we'll everybody can introduce yourself and mention something creative you're working on now. We love hearing that. And we'll start here in the room and we'll start with Corey.
Hey, I'm Corey and I put the newsletter together sometimes with help from Doug. And thing I've been working on most recently is a set of stickers that are gonna be going in an old Pokemon trading card machine in Buena Vista. And they rotate out the artists like every month. And it's, some people will do like a little print. It's no bigger than the size of a trading card, so I did stickers. So I've got like 2 human designs and then one that's a holographic alien. So you've got a,
Oh, cool. Are you going in the soda shop?
yeah, it's gonna go in the ice cream / soda shop.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see it in there. That's great.
Thanks.
Very cool. I'm Rachel Ann. Right now I have slowed down a little bit on my projects, but just before I came here, I finished up a logo project for Queer Dance Roanoke, which was like very collaborative and very fun, and everybody is pleased with it, including myself. So
Yeah.
it's always good.
Excellent. And tonight you feature alligators.
Yes, I've got alligators today.
And a Palmyra shirt.
Yes. My
Excellent.
friend gave this to me. She does this thing where she'll like buy merch and then she doesn't like how it fits and she's like, hey, you want a shirt? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Good for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. And let's go online and we'll start with Katie.
I'm Katie Pickle, and it's a treat to be a part of this today because I was actually born during the flood of '85. So I will be turning 40 when the flood turns 40. And my parents participated in it's affiliated with the Roanoke Times, but it's also affiliated with the Stormwater, where they're telling their stories. And I just learned this never even came out until they started writing down the stories that my dad had to park on 81 to get to my mother who was going into labor over off of near Peters Creek. It was that crazy of a situation. So I had to be born at Lewis Gale because they couldn't access Corellian at all. And presently I am working on homeschooling for children tomorrow in Clifton Forge from 8-year-olds to 10-year-olds. We're going to be just doing color theory. I'm working on my first furry costume, like legit, like, yeah, I know. But it's I'm trying to make it like the pros would for my niece. And
what's the critter? Like what kind of
it's a corgi.
Oh,
Yeah.
those
So
look really
okay.
challenging. Good luck.
I'm trying to make it look like I actually just like made like stuffed a corgi for lack of a better term. Like I really want to make it super realistic. And of course I'm working on finishing up the Tinker Creek project as well.
Excellent. All right. Natalia.
Sorry, I had to mute because my dog was barking. I'm Natalia Michael. I'm like Katie, also working on my piece for the Pilgrims at the Creek exhibit. Not super far with the final one yet because I'm continually retooling my composition, but eventually it's for the better. So
All right, good, thanks. Cody,
I'm Cody Statler, and I'm currently working on just gathering materials and different prints and stuff for Porch Fest and Old Southwest on October 4th. I'll be there selling some art and stuff with my wife.
excellent. Do I need to have cash or can I buy on with using this thing?
That's one of the things I'm working on. So cash should probably be a safe bet, but I'm gonna try to make it accessible to anyone with or without.
Okay, I'll bring multiple forms of payment.
Okay.
Ben,
Hey, I'm Ben Bazak. I'm on the Arts Commission. I'm chair of the placemaking committee. Well, I guess my favorite story about the flood is, you know, you can wake up a lot of mornings and have listen to the radio in wintry conditions. I was a school teacher, and it wouldn't take much at all for you to hear that the schools in Mount Rogers would be closed. It was just torture because they were always closed and we always had to go to school. But during the flood, they were open. It was our little measure of payback.
this is a big price to pay for a little.
Well, you know, as teachers, we can be petty that way.
Lisa,
Hey, I'm Lisa. I run the Healing Arts program at Carillion, and I run a separate dance company called Mental Health in Motion. And I'm excited about this conversation because Mental Health in Motion had an opportunity this past summer to present a piece, to perform a piece on the intersection of mental health and big traumatic weather events such as flooding, kind of inspired by Helene and some of the flooding that happened in West Virginia back in February of this year. So we were able to do that in West Virginia back in June. So I'm excited to hear more about all of this and talk about some maybe collaborative ideas. But the thing that I'm currently working on, I'm choreographing two pieces for another dance company that I'm part of called City Modern Ensemble. That's supported by the Roanoke Ballet Theater, and we have our show coming up at the end of October. And our October show always has a little bit more of some heavier themes, maybe some spookier themes. And so I'm excited to present two pieces in that show. So
Lisa, where will that show be?
it'll be at William Fleming High School. It's the Friday night and the Saturday night before Halloween at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
terrific. Make sure we have that for the newsletter too.
Yes, I'll get that info to you.
Great, thanks. And then Molly,
Hey guys, I think I missed the question at the beginning.
oh, anything you want to answer really is great. No, we're just what you're working on right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I have a ferry building workshop coming up on Saturday. It's going to be in Riverdale. We're going to make some ferry houses and we're going to put them on display around Southeast.
Very cool.
And Molly, you'll be very happy to know that I ordered something from Amazon and it came today.
Awesome.
And
That's
I
really
able to
exciting.
successfully do it. And so I'm keeping my eye out for your supplies.
Okay.
And there might be a chance to go over to a different building, but I asked today where I go to get those if I didn't put the right address on there.
Okay.
So
Yeah, just tell me when I need to come through.
okay, excellent. All right, well, with that, we've got a presentation and Mackenzie's going to guide us through a little presentation conversation, and we're going to go deeper into this flood of 1985. Right. And can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Alrighty, here you can drive that boat. Oh, I should have moved that over to the side before I gave it to you.
Just scoot you guys over a little bit.
And you can take the shape, it'll, perfect, yeah.
Cool. All right, well, yeah, I'm gonna talk about, we're doing a project in Stormwater for the 40th anniversary of the flood of '85. We're calling it Roanoke Remembers, the flood of '85. But Doug also asked me to give a little bit of background on, I get this backwards, just on stormwater as well, and what we do, and
Yeah.
and give some context, and then I'll talk about what we're doing now for that. And it's kind of informal. Hopefully this is interesting, but feel free to ask any questions. We can dive into other conversations as needed. So just to start, we like to play a little game sometimes, get kind of people's brains thinking about stormwater, see what people know. So we have this kind of like Jeopardy style game. These are all the possible answers, and I'll ask you just a couple like trivia questions and see if you can find the answer. So if I asked, where does the Roanoke River end? What's its end point? Does anyone want to take a guess from the answers on the board where they think the Roanoke River might end? Or do you know? Doug probably knows. I don't know. Everyone have a guess?
Chesapeake Bay.
Chesapeake Bay. We got guesses for Chesapeake Bay. Any other options? All right. Well, I'm glad you answered that because this is a trick question. Everyone thinks it ends in the Chesapeake Bay because most of Virginia drains to the Chesapeake Bay, but the Roanoke River is an exception. It actually drains to North Carolina, the Albemarle Sound, down by the Outer Banks. So, if you didn't know that, we are not in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So, and I'll ask one more question that's relevant that people might know. Does anyone know what Roanoke used to be called? An old name for the city of Roanoke that might be on here?
Big Lick.
Okay. Yes, Big Lick. And do you know why it was called that?
No, but I heard that downtown used to be really swampy.
Exactly, yeah. So Trout Run, which is on here, is the name of the stream that's underneath downtown. It's under Campbell Avenue. And the city was built on, like these swampy lands, and Lick is kind of like a slang name for these kind of like salty marshlands, and Big Lick was one of the names. So that's, you'll see that, a lot of businesses are using the Big Lick name, but that was an old name for the region. So some fun things there. Other things I'll highlight, that will come up, the numbers 11,000. That's how many inlets we have in the city, some of our stormwater infrastructure. So if you see a grate or an inlet around the city, that's part of what we maintain. And the 1,000 is the outfall. So those are the structure points where it's going out directly into the streams.
There are 11,000 other,
The
like,
inlets.
on the streets.
Yeah, on the streets, yeah.
Wow. It's
And I
amazing.
go to 1,151 outfalls into either a small tributary or the Roanoke River.
Is that just the city?
Just within the city limits, yeah.
Huh.
That's crazy.
And so other numbers on here, we have 14 streams, which I'll talk about in a minute. We have Roanoke River and 13 tributaries. And we have 9.7 miles of the Roanoke River goes through the city limits. And 410 is the whole Roanoke River. So, we have just a small piece of the Roanoke River in our city. Obviously impacts us a lot, kind of goes through almost the center of our city. All right, so that's some fun facts. And so I'll just talk a little about the stormwater utility. I just included this a little bit, to give some context. I think, especially right now to, how does the federal laws trickle down to like a local impact? So the Clean Water Act manages what's discharged into a local waterway. And then the state manages that through permitting programs, basically, after the Clean Water Act. And they manage us as the city. We have a permit, basically, that controls how we manage that storm drain system, since it's discharging into the stream. So that's just a little background that hopefully clarify some of that. So our goals are based off of that permit, but basically, our utility was created in 2014 as part of the city. And our overall goals are to reduce flooding, or reduce flooding risk is how we try to say it, because there will always be flooding, but we're trying to reduce the risk and improve water quality. So I'll talk less about water quality today. Darn, I meant to bring some state of the waters, but I can show you where to access that. We have a lot of reporting on water quality and things that we do, but those are kind of the two focuses. So we have some pictures of all the different types of things we do. You know, we're cleaning up debris, trash, we're doing water quality monitoring, we're doing construction. We have street sweepers are part of our department. We have people managing all that infrastructure I talked about. We have robots that go in and, you know, are looking in those 11,000 inlets, stuff like that, repairing. All that's kind of part of what we do at Stormwater. It's a lot of different things. And then another part of that permit is, you know, education and outreach and telling people about the work we do, about how they're connected to stormwater, what they can do to limit pollution, things like that, and as well as some of our outreach projects, flooding is also connected to that, so.
And if I can interrupt with a question, prior to 2014, how did this work get done? Does that mean we didn't pay a fee with our taxes?
That's right, so yeah, our utility is funded by a fee, so if you live in the city, you pay a fee based off of impervious surface. Every property does, businesses, residential, even the city pays, and that funds our department. Before that, yeah, it was kind of managed across a bunch of different departments, had different pieces. So like transportation had like some street sweeping, but there really wasn't, I think there was only like 1 or 2 street sweepers. And a lot of it wasn't done. There wasn't anyone maintaining a lot of the infrastructure, or would just be done in with other engineering projects. And, you know, solid waste would do some of the debris things. So it's kind of split up, and then some of the permit was just managed by environmental management, Christopher Blakeman. So the creation of that, utility was that, so we could expand these services and do more, and manage all these different aspects, because there wasn't capacity, just kind of split up amongst all these departments.
Okay, looks like Ben's got a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Mackenzie, do you or your department handle like environmental impact of the water system through the city, or is that another department?
Are you talking about like construction
Yeah,
or?
Yeah, for like when there's something done, like if we put in I don't know, ports or we're doing this whitewater rafting and stuff. Who studies the environmental impact of that? Is that you or is that somebody else in the city?
It depends exactly. So the planning department would handle the permitting. And then a lot of the permits are actually state permits for working in the waterways. So that's even outside of the city. And then sometimes projects ask us, if it's done outside of our department, they ask us for comment. So like we gave some comments on the in-river kayak park, but it's a Parks and Recreation project. So it's a little bit tricky sometimes how the city's set up, but like for construction, usually planning handles the permits just based off of their ordinance, and they do all the inspections and stuff. And if there's a compliance issue, sometimes we work with them on it, but they kind of handle more the construction side for private construction.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions so far? Cool, so yeah, that's just a brief overview.
Sorry,
No,
let me take it back now. I
think
just
you
had
skipped it.
to let Robin in the room.
There we go.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so just a little more background on the area. If you're not familiar, we are in the Upper Roanoke River watershed, and as I mentioned, our river goes down to the Albemarle Sound, so it's kind of this small picture in the bottom. It's not really good at showing that, but we're in this top little corner where the Roanoke River starts out in Montgomery County as the North and South Fork, and they meet to form the Roanoke River. And then it comes through us, and even though we're in this upper section of the Roanoke River, we're still kind of in a bottom of a bathtub in this valley of mountains. So, yeah, that's why we're in this kind of low spot, is the center of downtown is a nice flat drainage area, and that's why it's a nice place to build a city, like many other places, like to build around water and nice flat areas. But that also can lead to some flooding, so some background on why we might see some of the flooding we do. And these are the city limits, we have the Roanoke River, as I mentioned, and then these 13 smaller tributaries. The light blue is showing the floodplains for each of those, which it might be kind of hard to see this zoomed out. But just to show some of those areas, and that we have the number here, there's over 1,000 structures in those floodplains. Those could be businesses or residences. And just because you're not in the floodplain doesn't mean it's not gonna flood, right? That's just kind of an estimation of risk. So there's plenty of flooding that happens from something we call pluvial flooding, which is basically a drainage problem where the water just can't drain quickly enough, or maybe there's a low spot and it's not really connected to a river. So that's not really shown here. And actually a lot of the downtown flooding ends up being that type of issue and not necessarily the stream underneath it, just that infrastructure is over 100 years old, and it's hard to drain really quickly when you get intense storms downtown, which we can get in our kind of mountainy areas. So that can be a lot of what happens downtown. And so like the project right now on First and Salem, if anyone's seen, that's like step one of a multi-part project to expand some of those really old tunnels down there and try to get some better drainage. So just a little background on kind of some flooding background overall. And now we'll talk about the flood of 85, which obviously was 40 years ago. So, but some of the obviously the geographical information still applies. If you're not familiar with what the event was, I've got some pictures there throughout. It was called the Election Day flood because the actual flooding happened on November 4th, 1985. But really what also helped lead to some of the extreme conditions is that we had gotten 5 days of rain before that. It had been raining from remnants of Hurricane Juan. I know Ben, his trivia question was what was the hurricane? And so that was, a lot of the most intense floods that we get in this area are remnants of hurricanes. That's pretty common. You get these big bands break off of hurricanes and affect the weather system. Same, Hurricane Helene in Asheville. That's where we can get a lot of extreme flooding. But on the day, we got 6.61 inches of rain in 24 hours. And that resulted in extreme flooding over 160 times the normal flow rate. So at Walnut Bridge, there by Blue Cow, the normal flow rate is 200 cubic feet per second. And it went up to 32,000 for anyone that knows numbers how we. Yeah. I'll show some more pictures as well to show the scale of that. You can see the picture down here in the bottom left is the city market square. And just the force of that pushing a lot of those trucks and the debris cleanup after the fact is a big problem as well. We call it a 175-year flood event. That's a little bit confusing to understand. It's really representation of recurrence risk. So you might hear those terms thrown around, but it's not that that's going to happen every 175 years. It's just that any given year we have a 0.57% chance. So that could be this, this year is that percentage chance. If that helps put that in context, you might hear people say 100-year flood or something like that. It's not that it's going to happen every 100 years. It's just probability, basically. If that's helpful. Some other stats and some more pictures here. The Roanoke River rose 19 inches in 12 hours. It crested at a little over 23 feet. It cost over $500 million in today's money to recover from, which is pretty wild. Wow. Yeah, I think in the state of the waters, I put in context some other storms in there as well, and you can see just how much money that is to recover from. And of course, they're placing 3,000 homes and 100 businesses, and there were 10 deaths in the Roanoke region, 3 within the city limits.
Can you like in recent years, like what's a crest of a not 175-year flood?
I think like 14 feet I think was what we got from Helene.
Okay.
And like around that, so
wow,
way higher than that. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like when it leaves its banks. I think 16 feet was maybe like 2020, like Hurricane Michael or something might be done there. But yeah, we haven't really seen something close to 23 feet since 85. Although there was like that, I don't know if you all heard about, paid attention to, there's like that microburst storm kind of near Peters Creek and like Lick Run, kind of the northern section of the city a couple weeks ago. And we did get some like record breaking heights on just like Lick Run and not on the Roanoke River. It was like a real localized like flash flood, some extreme, and we saw a lot of road flooding, not this much, but on Peters Creek there, you know, there was some swiftwater rescues in Schaefer's Crossing and on Peters Creek.
Hmm.
Just a couple weeks ago. So again, just for a little context, this is an area a lot of people are more familiar with over by Walnut Bridge, the greenway there by Blue Cow. I'm pointing out this building up on the corner. I think I'm pointing to the wrong roof, but it's where the gas station was right there. And this is during the flood, and the blue lines are the normal river corridor, right? So
Wow.
you can see that it's not just the river gets higher, you can see how far out it spread, right? Which is really how it impacts so much. And you can, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's this little blue truck there. It's at least, you know, up to the wheels of that truck there. I tried to give a little context of the modern day like street view. Going back and forth of what that would be like. So that's some background on Flood 85. Yeah, let's see if this video will maybe.
Let's see if they hear it.
I was a fourth grade teacher at Raleigh Ford Elementary School. And, you know, we've just been doing our normal thing, you know, kind of new from big rain,
Yeah, I wasn't gonna listen
but
to the whole
we
thing.
didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, you know, because I mean, Roanoke, you know. it is,
Can you all hear that?
On that particular day of the
Probably just needs to be louder.
water rising, the principal came into my classroom, or all of our classrooms, and said, you guys, we're shutting school down the rest of the time, and you guys need to-" So, you know, that's pre-self and, so, I called my husband who worked at the Kroger bakery.
We might need to share this window.
He said,
So we stop, share. You can go, put your cursor up to the top and that share might come down. Oh, did it not?
I think I see it down.
Oh, down, okay, it's on down the bottom, okay, yeah. The middle,
The green.
the green one.
well, that we've been told we have to stay here. And I can't remember the exact location of where he was as part of the building, but I know that there was water around them. But they quit, so, you know, they were gonna be in high production, you know, they think by stay home or whatever. And so, I got in the car and I started driving towards Salem, which is, I lived in the Cherokee Hill subdivision. I have 3 children. 2 of them were at Bloomsbury Elementary School. One was a kindergartner and one was a first grader. And then I had an 18-month-old baby that was in a private home for daycare up in Salem. So as I'm driving down Main Street in Salem going towards, you know, I was gonna go pick my children up and take them home. And then I met someone, there was another parent that said, oh, you can't go to Glenwood, they won't let you up there. So we've been told that the kids are safe, everybody's safe. But they're not releasing any students and they're not bringing buses in. And they're not letting parents come and they're not, you know, it is. Well, it turns out the kids had to spend the night there at the school. So my 18-month-old baby. And as I came up towards that area, I noticed that the road was just massive water. I mean, not just a trickle, it was a lot of water, but something about the mother kicked in on with me because I looked up on the hill, there's a little incline. I looked up there and I could see the babysitter's house. And the water was already up to her front door. I mean, I could see that, so it scared me. And I could, no cell phone, couldn't call her, didn't know what to do. So I found a dry area, a little strip mall on Main Street that was way up off of the water area. And I drove up there and I parked my car, got out and started walking downhill and walked right into that water with the intention of going across the water to get to my baby. So, I'm a non-swimmer. I'm very much afraid of water. And so this was a big deal for me, so I'm treading through the water. Slowly it's getting to, chest high. And it's fairly, rapid. It was going pretty quick. But I knew I was going to get up there and get my baby and then trudge back to my car and make it home. And as I'm about halfway across, I hear this man yelling at me, and he's going, "Lady, stop, stop, lady, stop." But I was determined, so I just kept on going. And the next thing I know, he comes up behind me and grabs hold of my arm. He was a firefighter. He dressed in all of his gear. He looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" And I started sobbing. I said, "My baby's at that house up there. I have to go get her." And he said, "You do realize that with water like this, the manhole covers could have popped off. There was gook down there, it was all nasty and everything." He said, "You could slip and fall." He said, "I hope you're a good swimmer." I said, "Well, I don't know how." So it felt like an eternity that we stood there and just looked at each other like, what are we going to do? Because here I am in water up to my chest. And he just didn't know. So he said, "Okay, here's the plan." He said, "I'm going to take you by the arm, walk you over there. We're going to walk up to her door, knock on the door, and try to get your daughter." So we did that. And when
All right, I'm gonna leave you all in suspense. So you have to watch the rest of the story yourself. Back to, yeah. All right, can you all still see the PowerPoint now that I'm on a different screen?
No.
No, not yet, not at present. Can you at least tell me if that story has a happy ending?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Don't worry.
Keep you waiting.
I was sure that we were not going to hear that story unless it happened.
I know. All right, are you all able to see this now?
You gotta hit the blue share.
Oh, there. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
Natalia's picturing herself carrying two babies.
I mean,
Yeah.
so sensitive now to like anything like that. Any story, fictional or real, I'd like, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I'll give it, I guess spoiler is we do hear just her story. We don't hear the rest of the babysitter's story. She had more children there, so there's unknowns. Gotta track her down.
I don't know, Mackenzie, if you're going to get into this later, but a question that I had earlier is how much notice did people have about the flooding and like evacuation and such?
As far as I know, there was not really notice of like major flooding. There was, it had been raining, for a while. So, people knew, it was kind of saturated and stuff. And I think there was, a storm then, but I'm not aware that there was any major flood notices. And that's part of what, we also interviewed Chief Hoback. He tells a story, and part of our project is going to be highlight like how our like flood warning and all the technology and things that have changed since 1985. I think that's a big thing, just in cultural shift, like people weren't really used to the type of warnings that we have and thinking that way, and a lot of the emergency personnel were attending funerals for someone else and doing other things, and so and there was no cell phones or
Yeah,
anything, so just communicating, and all that has changed a lot. So as far as I've heard from reporting stuff, there really wasn't warning of that there would be significant flooding, and people weren't really aware until they kind of happened upon it, or maybe as it was happening. I've heard.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, when she made that comment about no cell phones, I mean, or
Yeah.
just the whole preventative weather forecasting where we know about hurricanes that are, 100 miles off the shore of Bermuda, and we track them all the way. All that was not a thing then.
Right, I mean, it's changed so much, I mean, and they had, so Chief Hoback, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's a fire chief now, but at the time he was a paramedic, and the helicopter crews rescued him and then had him stay with him so he could navigate the city, and he could know where things are, but they, they weren't able to do that with their limited technology. They need someone local to help them know where places were. And they couldn't call you down, so it is, a lot has changed in that respect, and also, we have swiftwater rescue crews, and things are a lot more connected. We have more warning systems in place. It's not perfect, but it's definitely wild to see how much has shifted just technology wise in that short amount of time, and how big a difference that makes to also how people think about, I'm going to receive a warning, right, before something like this happens. So. But yeah, I gave a little preview of kind of what we're working on, but just we've talked about trying to do some sort of project in Stormwater to kind of memorialize the flood of '85 in some way for a while. And so we kind of outlined our goals here of what we want to accomplish. So we want to preserve and archive the memories of the flood of '85 and its impact. Capture some of these personal stories for future, people who are younger and also not been here, and just preserve that. But we also want to remind the community of their flood risk and the importance of preserving the natural floodplain for risk in the future. We also wanted to use this opportunity in those stories to connect the community to a broader cultural story by elevating their own personal histories to a larger stage. So, we're hearing from these people who are nice enough to come in and share their stories. It's meaningful to them to be able to connect that to something larger than themselves too. And be like, oh yeah, this is not just, oh, I had a really bad day. It's like a larger piece of the Roanoke history and Roanoke puzzle, the cultural event. And then we also want to encourage the community to think about the future flood risk and what kind of resources we can provide to people to be more prepared, talk about the warning systems we have, and kind of be thinking, use the opportunity to spark some of that future conversation. So those are kind of our overall goals with some of this. And so what we're doing is step one, as I mentioned, we're collecting stories. We put out an open call for stories. And I'll share here this first, we've received over 50. I think at this point we're up to like 75, and some of those percentage, we left it volunteer for people to submit like audio and want to do audio visual. So we're hoping to be able to put some of those along the Greenway where you can kind of scan and listen to like a little audio tour. We're also going to have these hosted on an interactive story map on our website. And we're going to be highlighting them. We're going to put together, so this is the article in Roanoke Times that came out at the time. We're going to do kind of like a mock recreation of that with a lot of these stories and like some flooding info, and be giving those out as well. And one of the people we interviewed, I kind of butchered his quote. I didn't capture exactly, but he said, thank you for capturing my story. Thanks for having us come in and record this. He said, it's not just what you hear about in storybooks, is kind of what history is, what happens while you're living, something along the lines of trying to capture his quote there. So I thought that was nice to hear him be excited to have an opportunity to tell his story. I also wanted to share, these are from that original article part of the reason that, well, I wanted to capture the stories to preserve them, but also I think it's much more compelling and moving, and people connect to these much more than me just putting together a bunch of stats and, you know, here's a chart on what happened to the flood of '85, like, be prepared. If you can connect to the story and, you know, the story of that woman, getting her child out of the daycare, or, you know, when I listened to, she remarked how, you know, she was always confused why people never leave their building, and then when she experienced the flood, she realized how quickly it can happen, and she never realized that, and, you know, that sticks in your mind much more when you can hear these stories, than just me trying to convey, this alone with some data. So it's part of the reason why I want to capture the stories too. But so these are some of the snippets, from those original reporting. I can read some of them. Children on their rooftops were screaming, "Help, save us." Neighborhood dogs changed their porches, struggled in the rising water, their dying gurgles sickening the hearts of survivors. It really restores your faith in miracles for a child that small to survive. Divers found him after he'd spent 27 hours in what could have been his tomb. When Helen Bland told of her fight for life on the Shadeland Avenue, her only smile came at the memory of the dog next door riding safely on a log. Dramatic snippets from those original articles. But like I said, I think that has much more of an impact, and, you know, people connect to that more than just something.
Yeah.
Pun intended, I guess there. So that's part of the stories we're connecting. Yeah. Some other things we're doing is we're trying to highlight some high water marks, and this is what, we can talk a little bit more too, is I'd like some ideas from you all, if you have any more. We're gonna do some permanent high water marks along the greenways. And like downtown, a couple of just like signage points of, here's the point, literally just marking the high water point during that flood and the date, maybe a little bit of information. But one idea we had that we haven't really been able to formulate completely is I'd like to do some sort of like temporary or artistic type of high water mark. We thought about putting like some blue markings or fabric or something on trees, like along the greenway. But Parks isn't super jazzed about us putting some stuff on trees. But something that's just very visual that could mark something in really public places, and then we could use that to spark conversation and, we, have some info about, what should you do now? Not just, oh, this is interesting because this is how high the water can get. It's like, be thinking about, sign up for alerts so you're prepared, create a plan for emergencies, don't drive through flooded water, things like that. So we'd like some sort of creative ideas, discuss a little more just to get conversation going as well. And the third thing we're doing, we have some other broader, like long-term planning we're doing at the city for flooding. We're also going to be recording a podcast with the city staff, which I think will be kind of interesting that you all can look out for. We're going to kind of capture people who worked at the city who lived through the flooding and have experiences that. Some people who have worked in the present on improvements that the city's made since the flood of '85, like policy changes, technology changes, and then where the city wants to go in the future with flooding and resilience. So hopefully that will be interesting and valuable as well. And I have a little quote on there, we want to remember the flood of '85, but it's also kind of a launching pad for how we're going to think about and deal with flooding into the future. As the climate changes and as our cities grow and change, new challenges, and how we use those experiences to inform our future resilience. And then I'm just gonna add some scary flooding facts. Don't want to really scare anyone, but just kind of drive points home that I've been thinking about a lot. But it's not a matter of if it floods, but when. There will be disastrous floods in the future. It may not be in our lifetimes, but it will be at some point in the future. That's part of living by the water, is we will have floods. Maybe they'll be a little bit smaller or larger than this flood, but it's an inevitability. So we try to plan for those. Another thing to think about is you may not be where you normally are. You may not be at home. So I was reading some of these old articles and one of the sad stories of a man who died was actually here from out of town, and he was just working a temporary job. And he was helping, trying to save people and got swept away. And so, you know, it's important for us to think about it here, but also nationally and everywhere. And when you're planning to or thinking about preparedness, you may not be in your comfort zone as well, so. Yeah, I think about that when I receive alerts other places and stuff, just a reminder to take those seriously, things like that. Same with the next point, your weather can be very variable, and, you know, the disasters in Asheville could have easily been shifted slightly more towards us and things like that, so. We don't know when this type of stuff will happen. Yeah, I don't wanna scare you, but it's just like, we try to plan for and take the concerns seriously, because as we get further from disaster, it's just easier to get comfortable and be like, oh, flooding, that can never happen here, and it gets easier and easier to cut funds or cut, you know, our policies and things like that. So that's part of what we try to do in stormwater is like, no, we need to remember these things are important, and we need to keep on in the background, even when it's not a disaster time, that's when it's more important, so. That's why I include that, not just to be super scary, but it is important. But yeah, I have the short link for our website that we've set up that we're gonna put the interactive map onto, roanoke.gov/remember85. We also have some info on there now. There's a link to a story map where you can see more about the history of the flood of 85. And you can submit more pictures or anything if you want to. We'll try to incorporate those. We've kind of closed the call for stories, but if you have some and want to submit them, we can work them in. We can work them in. But yeah, happy to discuss, you know, answer more questions if I can, or if you all have ideas about things that might be like an interesting way, like I talked about, to have some kind of temporary high watermark conversation starter. Whether it's on the greenways or parks or something that's easily accessible, we're open to ideas. Or you can think about it and get back to me, but.
Are you planning on doing anything specifically like on that day? I didn't see what day of the week it is, but on that day?
Yeah, so it's election day. We're gonna try to get, yeah, in the farmer's market downtown and do like a little, I think they're gonna let us do like little high water marks down there of that picture that we showed you of the market square. And we're gonna print out like a banner of some of those pictures and have like info, kind of public info session, and like a little event down there on the day of. And then we're trying to have some info at Go Fest, you know, be talking to people about flooding focus. We set up a booth there, be a little bit less focused on that, but yeah, we'll have some outreach there as well.
Mhm.
Seeing the footage from Lakeside, you know, that made me think about when I was a kid, that they didn't close until the following year because they had an accident. I think maybe that was the final.
Someone in the
for them.
company, yeah.
Yeah, but I remember like they were closed for a long time and trying to rebuild, and a maintenance worker, there was an accident where they lost their life. And I think that was just too much to come back from. And it started, you know, with damage from the flood.
Yeah, I think Victory Stadium is similar. It was damaged a lot in the flood, but it is actually still around a little bit longer after that, before it was torn down. But I think people associate it most of the flood damage. Yeah, and I can, we're gonna have the interactive links of the stories live soon, so you can, I'll send it out to y'all. You can all follow up on, see how that story ends from Deborah's.
Yeah.
The suspense.
Do you have any plans for any public sharing of the stories, like live, like not just online, but maybe at the event that you were talking about downtown?
Yeah, we could, yeah, we're gonna try to think of a way for people to listen to them, and then we do wanna put like little ways for people to kind of listen to it along the greenways, like you can scan something and like listen to a story while you're walking, a little audio tour, hopefully along not just the Roanoke River Greenway, some of the other greenways. I think that would be fun. And yeah, I thought about maybe even a Go Fest too, if we can set up like a little listening booth or something for some of the audio ones would be kind of fun. Oh, and we are gonna have a Go Fest, we're gonna do one of the campfire stories, so we're gonna be reading some, I forgot about that. We're gonna be
That's cool.
reading something.
Um, what about the live part at Go Fest? That campfire stage might lend itself to that.
Yeah.
She was very good, I
I
thought.
know, yeah, I think it's gonna be hard for us to get like the actual people, but they have like an audio, they're gonna give us, we could play some of the stories that are already recorded. So we could play that one, but the rest we're just gonna have to read ourselves, it's hard to coordinate getting all the people out, but it's nice to hear it in their own voices,
Yeah.
too, you know, the story, but we'll do our best.
There might be some actors around that would be willing to
Yeah.
reenact.
I was just thinking about the same thing.
That'd be kind of fun, yeah.
Speaking of actors, Debbie Reynolds was present at Lewis Gale during the flood. I thought that was a random little tidbit.
Was she there to welcome you?
Inadvertently, yes, she was. That's it's true. She had who she was married to at the time, was having a niece, so her like step niece, I believe. Something to that effect. But yeah, there was a moment where she did point out like my dimple or something like that in the nursery behind the glass.
Oh, wow. Well, was your dad standing there talking to her?
Like, yeah, and my aunt was like fangirling like crazy.
I should say not all the stories are sad and like some are a little less tragic. There's like a story of people falling in love, like a paramedic and like a nurse or something, you know, people meeting each other at the hospital and, you know, births and stuff. So there's all slices of life in the stories. It's not all that dramatic. And,
Yeah.
there's one that's kind of funny too about, I mean, it's kind of funny in retrospect. I'm sure at the time it was tragic, but finding out his girlfriend was cheating on him because of the flood or something like that. But the way it's written is kind of funny. But just the timing and the circumstances, but I'm sure it was not funny at the time.
You didn't use a real name.
Yeah.
Hey, Mackenzie, I was sort of thinking about that goal of the preparedness and what you mentioned about like part of preparing is not just, is like what we do right now. And so at the Global Water Dances event or festival in June, part of what we brought was a lot of information and education around the mental health impact
Yeah.
of big flooding events, and the rise of anxiety around weather, how our relationship with water changes. I'm from the Asheville area. My husband and I are from the Asheville area, so we had a lot of friends and family members experience Hurricane Helene. And one of the longer lasting, I guess sort of mid-level lasting impacts that happened was on their drinking water. And so even just going from having Ashevilleans are notorious for being really prideful around how great the drinking water is. Like people in Asheville are like, the drinking water is amazing. And to go from that to not feeling safe, not knowing if the water that you're drinking is safe, was a big shift. And so there's a lot of changes in relationship, not just with waterways and riverways and outdoor culture and life and lifestyle, but also just in how we're surviving and our relationship to the water that we're drinking. And then there was a lot of rise in anxious attachment that was happening too, especially because a lot of kids went missing, a lot of kids died. And so seeing, even just a year later, some of the developmental things that happened in the students there, and even, in the teachers and the parents and everybody, there's a lot of mental health effects. So I think providing some education around that could be really helpful in thinking about how we prepare now before a weather event. And I'd love to talk to you about the dance story that we put together.
Yeah.
I can email
Think
that
about
to
that.
you because it feels like in line with some of the stories that were
Yeah.
given to you in a verbal fashion. Ours is just visual.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, and I love that you brought up the mental aspect. I think that's super important. If you have any resources you want to share too, I'd love to share those with people, but I think that's
Yeah.
often overlooked, especially the after flooding. A lot of times when we talk about floods, like, oh, the event of, but those effects, even the cleanup, I didn't have a lot of pictures, but the cleanup of the flooding and the infrastructure and the effects on your lives and the mental and even illness and stuff like that, that can go on for a long time after. And then a lot of times that's not really captured in a lot of the media and what we remember about flooding, but that can go on a long time after too, and that's really important. And another thing that people have brought up to me when we've had other events or like preparedness events is there's not a lot of great resources, it seems like, for people with disabilities and handicaps during disasters, and that seems like a big need to develop in the city. So we're trying to work on figuring out that, but if anyone knows of any resources on stuff like that, I'd be happy to promote that. But that's stuff that people have brought up to me before, and it does seem like a lack of resources.
That was one of the tragic stories that stuck with me from the wildfires in California. The disabled man and his son wasn't equipped to help him get out of the house.
Yeah.
Were there neighborhoods in particular that, certainly there were, because all these, houses along the river.
Yeah, there's a lot of articles and pictures of Willow Creek Apartments, which is over towards Salem, was affected a lot.
Oh, yeah, they were low.
Yeah.
There's that one neighborhood that's not even there anymore. It's
Yeah,
I think it's like 10th Street if you're heading towards like 581 to go under 581. It's on the right and it's just a park now.
the Brown Robertson Park.
Yes.
Yeah, there was actually 2 of the desks were there,
Yeah.
and we have a mural there now, and there's a sign there that talks about some of that. But yeah, and I think even the park by Black Dog Salvage yeah, those were I think like mobile home neighborhoods, and yeah, they were like totally wiped out. Yeah, just vacant areas now. Trying to think if there was another. I mean, yeah, I think there's a couple of neighborhoods that were hit way harder. A lot of the lower lying areas. Those are ones that come to the top of my head.
What about Norwich?
I mean, probably.
You think?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any pictures or anything specifically tied in there, but I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, we have quite a few pictures from Peters Creek. I think that boat rescue, one of the boat rescues pictures were there in Peters Creek. A lot of people talk about the Orange Market flooding. I think that was just kind of like a culture touch point. People mentioned that. Schaefer's Crossing, there was some swiftwater rescues through there. That's like a kind of dangerous point anyway in any type of flooding, but yeah, definitely some of the pictures there, it's way up. I don't think where else. Around the hospital, the water didn't get up in there, but there's a lot of pictures from the hospital. I know people have talked about being some of the births and stuff, people being in the hospital and watching the water rise. Definitely right by the stream there, and they have like some sort of flood wall system now that they've kind of have on their lower levels just to keep out some of the road flooding that they've invested in.
Yeah, you think about, a neighborhood, relying on each other, and
Yeah.
even in Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, there's that's when she meets the neighbors, is during the flood, and they go out and they're looking at the aftermath and such. But, you can imagine, mental health in motion is in the catalog, and you could imagine a neighborhood, if they were interested in doing that, having mental health in motion do do a performance and engage them in a conversation together where that did spark that preparation and such. I just made a note to ask Molly Hunter if there are any neighborhoods that are exploring that, but if they, when we talk about using arts to, remember something, and of course, we're first thing we think of is the visual arts, but we also have the performing arts
Yeah.
that we can deploy. And you think about those QR codes on the Greenway, it could go to a video.
Yeah.
And maybe, if there's a video for performance at one of those high water marks up on a hill, not that it's easy to dance on a hill on a slope. But there could be.
We
there
can
could be
dance
something-
anywhere.
That's part of the challenge.
Yeah,
there
we've
might
done
be-
everything.
Mackenzie, do you know with the flood mitigation, is there a way of showing what the high water mark would be now? What the impact would be now if we had that volume of rain?
Yeah, we probably could. So the biggest project is, they're called bench cuts. There's a big Army Corps project. So if you're along the greenways and you see, kind of looks like a bench, it's just a dip and a big flat spot. And they're kind of looking at these wide open areas along a lot of the greenways, especially from like Lucina down towards, Bennington, basically. And I see even upstream of that, but those are specifically engineered, to hold floodwaters and big floods, and leave those areas open. Part of what I talked about in our goals is the importance of these spaces. You saw how wide out those floodwaters go, so you need some of that overspill. But those are only designed to hold a 25-year storm, a 25-year flood. And that's a problem with these big storms, is just you can't hold all that water. The designs for that these are just so extreme. To plan around it completely, but we do have a lot of those hold in, and in the 2020 storm, they did hold that floodwater. So that was like kind of a test, since those have been installed and they performed as they're modeled to, and we expected them, and they didn't go out of the bank at that time. So that's kind of a good test run of those engineered projects along the Roanoke River. And we have acquired a lot of stormwater utility. We work with FEMA, and there's a lot of grants to acquire homes and properties in the floodplains. And we have, of course, like the Ramada Inn, for example, if you're familiar with that on Franklin. There's an old project by Brown Robertson Park, an old retirement home that was abandoned for a long time. We acquired that and demolished that. A couple other residences that were in high hazard or frequently flooded. So we have done quite a few of those at this point: acquisition, demolition, and removing things from really high risk areas. And that also, they become deed restricted when you do that, and then you can't build anything on them. So those also act as basically a floodplain when we get those as well. And we've added quite a bit of those around the city. But yeah, it would be an interesting project to see how much it has shifted. Yeah, some of the models. We usually do that as like a local project, if we can remove stuff from the floodplain when we do that project. So there's one over in Peters Creek where I think we're able to get like 6 properties out of the floodplain with that project. So yeah, it's difficult.
Oh, sorry. Could you say the name again of what those like lots are called? Where that
It's called a bench cut.
Sorry?
Bench cut. A bench cut.
Bench cut.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny word. I don't know where that
But
came
they
from,
made-
but yeah.
I remember they put them in, they made a big difference.
Yeah,
It seemed
yeah,
like,
Yeah, and it was a big project, so millions of dollars to engineer those, and you look at it, you're kind of like, okay, just a space, but it's important.
No, the reason why I mentioned it is I think a lot of people don't understand, certainly people who've moved in the area recently, don't understand what the city has done to mitigate, because we were flooding all the time before those.
Yeah, Wasena Park was always underwater, it seemed
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the greenways and park systems are along the rivers specifically for that purpose. It's making use of that floodway space for an asset for the city, but it's also keeping it open from, development. That would be at risk of flooding too. So you've seen a lot of those park spaces are by the river there, which is dual benefit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Carmel News a couple years ago, I can try to find the article, they had a good follow-up on the Army Corps project about all the mitigation efforts and some of the numbers and stuff. I can try to find that, and send that, to y'all.
Oh, that's
They
good.
had some good info in there on that project.
Any other thoughts or suggestions? Excitement to undertake a project? Anybody gonna run out and, okay, well.
I have one more thing. I'm sorry to be that person.
Yeah,
So I was thinking in that list that you have of different things that people can do to prepare now. Last I checked, I hesitated to say it because I have to do a little bit of digging to find out if this is still true. But last I checked, people can take the psychological first aid training, or there are other kinds of trainings for free online and basically be certified in like a psychological first aid, which is meant for different natural disaster events.
Oh, wow.
And so I know I did it for free like 10 years ago. But it was
That's
really
cool.
it was really helpful, and I remember learning a lot, and it takes you through different simulations. And just to have different people in the community kind of prepared with that
Yeah,
training to help your neighbors, to help your community, might be a way that people can prepare now for all sorts of different events.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you're able to find that, I'll try to search it, but if you have something on that,
Yeah,
send that
I'll
to
look up
me.
what I did, and if hopefully it's still free.
that might be something we wanna do as a group. If it's not, if it's, was it like 10 minutes? No, I'm just kidding. I know it's longer than 10 minutes. Do you remember how long it was? Yeah.
Natalia, what were you gonna
It
say?
was a while, yeah, it was big.
Oh, I just wanted actually to second what you said. I had a similar thought, that like, everybody kind of, it's easy to complain when things are being annoying around the city, but I have seen Roanoke doing a lot of work, like infrastructure work, even recently. Like I want to say a year or two ago, there was a installation of some really big, like what looked like flood mitigation kind of pipes in my area. So like I appreciate that Roanoke is taking that kind of thing seriously, and maybe more people just need to know about it. Like,
Yeah, well, thanks, follow us on social media. Keep in touch with all we do.
the
But
other
can we visualize it? In other words, that's what I was trying to get at. Is
Mhm.
there a way
Yeah.
of kind of showing?
Yeah. Our brain.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
Well,
One other kind of sorry.
Go ahead, Natalia.
One other, I don't know, maybe this is a dumb thought, but the what was it called? The bench cut the properties that you mentioned. What are those being like? Are they still just flat, or have they been like as like a reservoir or something been dug in them?
No, they're, we actually have to keep them to certain standards for the Army Corps, so like we mow them a certain number of times a year, but if there's like excess sediment that builds up on them, we have to clear that out. We can't dig or alter the terrain or anything. Cause it's engineered to certain specs, and if we alter it, then we're like liable for changing the design basically, and changing the engineering, but
Okay.
yeah, they're just flat basically, but they do grow up tall, tall grasses and stuff, and then we mow it
Yeah.
down.
Can
Okay.
art go in them?
That's a good question.
I think they're staging some of the, are they staging some of the whitewater parks equipment there now? Are they on some of that, or there's some snow fencing along
Oh,
there
interesting.
now for something. At least on in the.
Okay.
One
in
of the ones
Wassana.
I'm thinking of along the Greenway, you walk and you look down on this grassy area that the grass has grown up, but if they're gonna maybe cut it, if it's due for one of its cuttings during the time when we might want to commemorate,
Yeah.
there might be some cool displays you could put on those
Yeah,
cutouts.
it probably just depend, it couldn't be anything permanent. It could, we probably could figure out to do something, it would just depend on like what exactly it was and how it would need to be installed and if there was any risk involved in it, but something that I'm sure if you had a cool idea, we could see if it would work, but yeah, it'd probably have to have some caveats. But
The reason that, sorry, I know we're probably over time, but the reason that I asked, because this is the kind of nerd that I am, a while ago, I was reading some documents that I want to say it was like somewhere, a municipality somewhere in Northern Virginia put out like a rain garden guide. And I found it really interesting, and it's supposed to like be just like one of many efforts to help with like flood mitigation, particularly in smaller areas where like water is pooling. You can build it a certain way and put in certain native plants to help stabilize it. It's just the thing that's been on my mind.
yeah, and unlike residential and businesses, you can actually get a stormwater credit for installing a rain garden. So at your own home or yeah, certain businesses you can, but yeah, on like a scale, it'd have to be a huge scale to have like a major flood impact. Usually it's just for like drainage purposes and then water quality because it will filter and treat some of it. But yeah, they definitely can be cool. I think there's one at Virginia Western, one or two. And
Yeah, I think there is. And Greensboro's built them into their
yeah,
streetscape work, like their sidewalk has a rain garden that kind of built into it
Yeah.
in parts of the
Yeah.
town.
Where's that at? Sorry.
In Greensboro, North
Greensboro.
Carolina.
yeah.
Well, it is, we are hitting on time, but if you have ideas following this, reach out to me, and I'll give them to Mackenzie. Or if it might be a great idea and we have to like stop the presses, people hop on a call, we've got a terrific idea. And then, everybody, no one has an excuse. Everybody's gonna remember Katie's birthday this year.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
It is
Let's see
free.
where we're-
That's it. It's free still. I found it. I'll send it.
So it is free. It is
Yeah.
free. Terrific.
That's awesome.
Well, we'll get that link out to folks too. Yeah.
Mackenzie, is there some sort of timeline that you're looking at for?
Well, we're kind of wrapping things up around November, the actual anniversary. So between now and then, I mean, it could go in late into November if we wanted to. But beyond that, it'd probably be hard to keep something up, but that's what we're looking at, for this year.
And there is, one of the Daisy Art Parade products was Yemaya, the water goddess.
Ooh.
I wonder if, and Jane will know where Yemaya, Samel helped, and Samel and Jane and some other folks
Yeah,
pull that together.
Yeah.
And Yemaya, the water goddess, might be a good,
Yeah, out around,
Yeah.
talking to people. Yeah.
Don't forget the stilt walkers.
oh, the stilt walkers, yeah. Did we talk about that? Yeah, the Garlands. Yeah, they're up there at the water.
I'll put
high
myself
water
on
mark.
mute.
Just be pointing it out, yeah, just put stickers on things or that word.
All right, everybody, thank you for spending
Yeah,
time with
thank
us
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, this was really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, did
Yeah,
we-
thank
did we
you.
close?
It was awesome.
And then